Court in Joburg overturned an earlier ruling that the Amabhungane Centre for Investigative Journalism had to return a series of documents it's received detailing alleged wrongdoing by the Moti Group. Amabhungane has been publishing stories about the Moti Group's operations in Zimbabwe. The Moti Group denies wrongdoing. It had earlier won a court ruling to get the documents back. Now, the second ruling says Amabhungane does not have to return the documents at this stage, but as I understand it, it also says that Amabhungane cannot publish any more stories based on the documents until October. Caroline James is the advocacy coordinator at the Amabhungane Centre for Investigative Journalism. Caroline, good afternoon to you. Okay, let's just start with the first ruling. Thursday last week, quite a strange case. The order granted against you without your side of the argument being heard. Then we have, on Saturday morning, a second order which seems to change that. How do you feel about the second order?
Thank you for having me this afternoon. I think we were happy with the second order in that it meant that we didn't have to hand back the documents, as you said, had been ordered last week. But it didn't go far enough to the extent that it still maintained the interdict on us publishing stories and future reporting on the Moti Group. But throughout the proceedings on Saturday, there were very clear opportunities made for us to bring fresh applications, and we are in consultation with our lawyers to do so in the next couple of weeks to attempt to set aside the entire order from last week.
Because, I mean, for you to have the documents, okay, but that's no use to you if you can't publish anything, especially until October. A lot's going to happen between now and October.
Yes, absolutely, and we certainly aren't planning on letting that aspect of that order from last week go unchallenged because, as you say, there is no point then in us having the documents. And the reason we believe it's so important to report on this matter is because it is in sort of manifest public interest. And so we do want to ensure that we can get the information out to the public that we've been seeking to since we have had access to these documents.
Why has the date been set in October? What happens then? Is that when all the parties are due back in court?
Yes, the idea was from the hearing that was held ex parte, meaning we weren't there last week. It was decided by the judge that the next available date that the court could hear a full ventilation of the issues was in October. But we certainly feel that that is too far away for a matter of such urgency, and so we will be seeking to ensure that the merits of the matter are heard before October.
It seems then, if you put all of these applications together, it's not really a draw. The Moti Group's won. They've stopped you doing what they wanted to stop you doing, which is publishing from the documents.
Well, that aspect is still there, but as I said, we are hoping we will be challenging that to later on in this week. But I think what's very important is that one of their main goals of launching the application last week was to get the documents back. And what's come out in various comments by Junaid Moti and in the correspondence that we've had is that the purpose for them to get the documents back was for us to have to reveal who our source was and for them to ascertain the type of documents and the number and sort of content of the documents that we have. And they certainly haven't won on that aspect because we have not been forced to give them that. We cannot reveal our sources, and we also have no obligation to inform them about what the sort of nature of the documents is. So it certainly is not a complete victory for the Moti Group, and we believe sort of within a few weeks it will be clear that we hope that what was set out in the order last week will be set aside.
Okay, there's an awful lot of things going on here. So you have a cache of documents, I presume, on a server in Utah or Switzerland somewhere. And do you know if the Moti Group knows which documents you have? Or you're not going to tell them if they've got it right or not, are you?
Yes, no, exactly.
Okay, right. And if you did, you think that that would probably jeopardize your source?
Yes, we do maintain that if we were to let them know the types of documents we have and the full range of it, it would reveal our source, which would be against our principles and our responsibility to our journalistic source.
Okay, so I accept all of that. It seems to me, at first glance at this, that all of these documents sort of belong to the Moti Group. They're the property of the Moti Group. Now, I realize that the lifeblood of journalism is often documents like this. I've reported from documents like this in the past, so my heart is with you, but my head must argue with you on this for a minute. Which is to say, how do you know that the documents, how have you been able to verify the documents? How have you been able to make sure that they aren't actually being created for whatever purpose?
Well, we've been engaging quite in quite thorough detail with the sources. We believe the veracity of the documents, but we certainly don't go ahead with any stories without providing doing corresponding research. And we would never rely solely on what is contained in these documents. And as we have done in all our reporting on the Moti Group so far, have given them an opportunity to comment on the nature of our story, including the documents that we are relying on. And that then gives them an opportunity to raise questions about the veracity or the authenticity of the documents, which they have not done so in relation to the stories that we have published. And from that, because of that, we do believe that we are entitled and we trust the documents and its content.
Okay, and they haven't, as far as I know, gone to any press ombud or any other body that you subscribe to, any regulatory body, to complain about your reporting?
No, absolutely. And they are perfectly entitled to do that, or to bring a defamation claim if they believe that the claims that we have made are untrue. And as they have not done so, it does appear that they are not able to demonstrate that anything that we have reported has been untrue, and are then using various other legal means in a way to ensure we stop reporting on them.
Okay, so you base all of this on public interest, and again, my heart is with you, but my head is being paid to argue with you. So why are these stories so important? Why should you be reporting off these documents?
I think that what's really important, and as we move past the period of intense state capture, we need to recognize the role that private entities, particularly large businesses, play in corruption and illegitimate financial activity in our society. And I think you will have seen from the stories that we've already reported on the Moti Group, it was engagement by this private company with state actors in Zimbabwe, which is a form, it's a analogous to our experience of state capture. And so it is vitally important that we are able to highlight how private actors use the power and influence that their money brings to corrupt state entities for their own benefit.
So this is effectively a way of ensuring, I suppose your argument would go, making sure state capture doesn't happen again here. If you know who's done what, you have a duty to report it. People need to know what happened.
Yes, absolutely. And, state capture, as we understand it, was the Gupta state capture, but we need to be able to move the narrative forward that corruption isn't just necessarily one business corrupting an entire state. There are different elements to it, and we need to finesse our understanding of how the private sector works in that form of corruption, so that we can hold those who are engaged in that corruption accountable and also prevent it from happening in the future.
It's been quite interesting to watch this play out in the public domain. There's been it seems to me at least, quite a lot of advertising for the Moti Group more recently, a PR campaign. I mean, that's all part of the rules of the game, nothing wrong with that. There's also been a person known as the forensic investigator, Paul O'Sullivan, who's been making comments against you. Have you been surprised at who's reacted against you in this case?
I mean, I think when you are reporting on powerful individuals with a lot of financial clout behind them, you do expect that there will be a pushback and an attempt to sanitize their reputation, which is being dented through the reporting and their associations with the stories that we've been bringing into the public domain. So from that aspect, we haven't been too surprised that we have been getting pushback, and in some ways getting that pushback through these methods, as you said, through a PR campaign and paid advertising, rather than through complaints to the Press Council or through defamation cases. So it does strengthen our position in that we think that the stories that we are reporting, we've always stood by their truth and the contents of it, but the response has been, does justify what we're doing.
Caroline James, thank you. The Advocacy Coordinator at the Amabhungane Centre for Investigative Journalism. Do appreciate the time.